Okay guys, now I get to talk a little bit about something that I do know about. I've owned this machine just coming up on 2 years exactly. And I have some recent new subscribers, one who had just purchased this machine and had requested a little help, a little explanation of what's going on. And I think I advised him to, put in some aluminum, some plastic, and just start getting familiar with how things sound, how things feel, and just start cutting material. Familiarizing yourself with the controls. You don't need to worry about change gears right now. You'll need to familiarize yourself with you don't have to always have the change gears engaged. There's a lever on the back of the machine where you can disengage those change gears altogether, and one benefit, the machine runs a lot quieter. Don't be put off by the plastic gears. They do a fine job. I've had to replace several of them, but then again, I've also pushed the machine to its limits on many occasions. It doesn't mean I had a Unimat lathe at the very beginning, like 3 years ago, and I really couldn't do anything with it because I really didn't have any experience. I didn't know how to use it. Now, if I had that machine today, I could probably turn out watch parts, but at the time, I wasn't aware of its limitations. Same with the milling attachment for this machine. When I first started using it, it was a disaster. I thought the thing was a toy, a piece of trash. Once I started understanding its limitations and working within those limitations, it's a fine tool. I've gone over, or I will go over, a lot of the things that I've made on the machine, and I did make a lamp that actually lights up, and I don't have that anymore. I gifted it to somebody, but if you look through my videos and look for a lamp, it's a pretty interesting video. You pretty much have, all the tools that you need to start with, and you'll learn to keep the ones you use frequently at hand. I have things arranged right in front of the machine where everything's in arm's reach, and that may be a luxury. I think the number one thing you need to do is bolt this thing down to a bench or a table, something sturdy. This top is a two-man lift. I couldn't lift this by myself. It's a very heavy high school chemistry school desk. I think it is bolted to the wall. The rigidity is everything. When I first got this, I had it on a plastic utility cart, and I thought it was great because I could roll it all around the garage and use it wherever I wanted. Not the case. So, the next segment, we'll just do a couple basic turning operations with some steel of unknown origin. I believe it's a harder item. Now, I'm not using a chuck. I'm using a ER32 collet holder, and that doesn't really matter what you're holding the item with. I don't think at this point. You can buy a 4-jaw, 6-jaw chucks. Little Machine Shop has every part in this machine. If you should ever lose something or break something, down to the potentiometer, the on-off switch, the detent screw, the detent ball, the spring. They have everything. And they have the same treatment for many other machines. I think you search for replacement parts, something like that. It'll ask you what machine you're looking at, and you're off to the races. Okay, I guess that's about it for this little segment. Enjoy the rest of the video. Okay, number 2, don't feel limited to what you might be able to do on the Harbor Freight 7x10 mini lathe. Where'd it go? I have one particular piece of steel here that is very hard. And now I don't see it. Copper is a difficult one to machine. Okay, so let's start off here. We made some plumb bobs. These are brass items. We'll go through some of the brass. We did some threading in brass. We did some very accurate boring and threading. Here's that piece of steel. Of course, this has been filed, sanded all the way to about 2000 grit. Here's a little bimetal piece. Some more examples of threads. Here's a square item done on the mini lathe. Here's a tailstock die holder, according to the MT2 Morris taper number 2. We have one in aluminum, which is a dedicated tool, and this is just some nonsense. Here's some more square stock done, some semi-square, I guess. This is an important piece. This is a height gauge. This goes on your bedways. Your tool comes up to the bottom of that, and that is your center height for your spindle. So don't. Here's a little tool for straightening out something wobbly. Let that run that up against your part and let it kind of settle down, and it gets you within 10 or 20 thousandths of an inch. Gives you a starting place. You can do milling on the mini lathe with the appropriate attachments. That's about it. One thing you're going to notice right away on my machine is this piece is missing. You're going to be using this, if you are going to be using this and have this mounted, which you are because you just got the machine, I would suggest having it in this position, getting it pretty much centered on its bed, and tightening the gibs up all the way, and just don't even look at it again. You're going to need to devise some type of carriage lock. This isn't too difficult to make, and in the meantime you can use your half nut lever, and that'll lock you in sufficiently for facing. So I just want to emphasize emphasize that people say, you know, you can only do aluminum and plastic and brass with that thing. Well, that's not true. This is some very hard metals. Just start cutting stuff, turning stuff, seeing what it feels like, seeing what it sounds like, and just get familiar. You know, I learned more making little things for the machine than anything. So I guess that does it for this little segment. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is face this piece off, and the stick out on this is a little long for that, so I'm going to take just a very slight one, very slight facing. The carbide inserts like speed, the high-speed steel, you can run slower. It seems counterproductive, counterintuitive, but one thing I had a hard time getting my head wrapped around is kind of the harder the material, the slower you go. So I just kind of found the part there with my tool. Now I'm going to lock my carriage. Now you can lock your carriage by engaging your half nut down here, but the only way you can do that is if you have the gear knob on the back of your machine set in neutral, and that disengages the whole gear train. So as with any operation, the more consistent you can keep your speed cutting, the tool traveling, the better the finish is going to be. So I'm going to turn this up a bit, and we're just going to face off a little bit of this. Or are we? Okay, let me unlock this and give this a little bit of cutting. Just keep your speed consistent, steady. If your tool height is set right, I'm going to unlock the carriage and roll it out of the way. If your tool height is set right, you will have nothing here. Okay, if you have a sharp nib on the end here, your tool is too low. If you have a rounded nib, your tool is too high. And this is my height adjuster. I figured out what tall that should be. I put that on there, and I move that across till my tool just touches or goes under that. I think you're always better to be a touch low than a touch high. Okay, so now for turning, I'm going to bring it up. The machine's turning. You're going to find your zero. You're going to keep moving this until you scratch it, and that'll be your zero. Go well beyond the tool and then start coming back this direction, and don't backtrack. Keep everything going that direction now. That eliminates the backlash. Now I happen to have a poor man's DRO that you don't need, but Little Machine Shop sells it. I'll show you that in a minute. So we're going to do 10,000ths of an inch, and we're going to feed by hand. and get some oil on there. Once again, keeping your feed constant. And it takes practice to keep the wheel moving. Okay, so I'm going to back that away without pulling the tool back. Okay, now I'm going to go back behind the machine here, and I'm going to engage the change gears. And I'm going to go answer my phone. Okay, now I have the auto feed engaged, so we're going to be engaging the half nut here with our travel. So I'm going to do another 10/1000ths of an inch. And so see, I have this little DRO thing from Little Machine Shop. They send you one for the compound and the cross slide. They give you new screws, longer screws, so it'll fit on there. And it's a handy way to keep track of your movement. There's other things you can do and make to clock your travel, and so you'll figure all that out as you go. So here's a 10/1000ths here, and we're going to run into a 10/1000ths shoulder. I'm going to make the cut will be a total of 20/1000ths. The carbide inserts like speed. My RPM deal thing is not hooked up, but this is probably 600 RPMs or so. Then I'm going to back it up, get everything moving to the right, eliminate the backlash, and go ahead and engage. Get some oil on there. Now I should have left that other one on there because the finish changed and got a lot better with this on auto feed. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, and the last thing for today, is parting. So let me pause you because I need to clean this up a little bit and lengthen the tool. Okay, I just went and I'm going to cheat a little bit. I just switched parting blades from this very thin one to this one in hopes that I can successfully part this. So you want to part as close to the chuck as possible for rigidity's sake. Down here I have a something I bought on eBay, and it is a carriage lock. Okay, it prevents, you lock this down and prevents your carriage from getting any closer to the chuck than you have this thing set. So mine's just kind of hanging on there right now, but we'll pretend that it's on there. So in parting, and if anybody showed you this little trick, seeing if your tool is centered, with a carbide to any tip, you just want to barely touch this just to where it holds the tool, and this thing should be perpendicular. That means it's The tool is pretty much on center. The diameter of the work is going to have a reflection on it, and there's some variables, but this gets you in the neighborhood. Let me wipe my hands off here. No cloth towels anywhere near the running machine. No cloth towels, and preferably no long sleeves. Safety glasses, parting, you want your carriage locked. Okay, now you can shift this thing back into neutral. The gearbox, and that disengages the lead screw, enabling you to use the half nut as a lock. It's not the most ideal situation, but Harbor Freight wants you to tighten up this grub screw down here underneath this tool holder and dig that screw into your machine ways to hold it still. Not a good idea. Okay, now we're going to kind of mess around with our speeds. See what's going to work for us. The trick here is to keep the tool moving, keep the oil flowing. I imagine this is 300 or 400 RPM. Sometimes as you add oil, it might stop cutting. I'll turn the speed down a little bit. Now, right there, I lost engagement with the tool. What happened is I put that oil on there. It cooled everything down, shrank everything. So I'm going to kind of wait for things to normalize. There we go. You don't have to turn the tool back into it. When things normalize, it'll re-engage. Turning it down quite a bit. Sounds better, feels better. I need some oil. So we started pretty fast. Now we're going probably 150, 200 RPMs. I can tell it needs a little oil now. I'm going to kind of increase the feed as I add the oil to make up for that shrinkage. Okay, I'm going to stop at this point. Now you have the opportunity to chamfer this edge. So you would take your tool out, put in another tool, and do this situation, and that will give you your chamfer. Or you could bring in a file, left-handed, And now where your finished part comes off, it's something you can hand to your wife without her cutting her fingers on it. Or your daughter. Okay, I'm going to come back here and re-engage. Keep the tool moving. And it kind of takes practice to coordinate all this, to keep the oil coming and the tool moving. And listening and feeling. And then you have to say Yahtzee near this point. Yahtzee, and you're supposed to, I imagine, just let that drop. Okay. Very hot. Let's look at the end that we've parted. Well, let me run this off and knock this nib off. Okay. Okay, so I'll unlock the carriage and move it out of the way. And let's see what we were left with here. Now, when you grind your own tools, this is not nearly what it looks like. It's very, I mean, that can be filed off, sawed off, sanded off, put in the machine and faced. The condition of this face here tells you a lot about your cut-off blade, your rigidity. I guess that's it for parting. I guess that's going to be about it. Like I mentioned before, there's all kinds of things you can do. This is my little what-you-call-it. It's got a little stash on the bottom. These finishes are a result of starting with a file, 180 sandpaper, and I work all the way to 1,000 to 2,000 sometimes. Bi-hex material. Use a tap holder in your tailstock, which I have here, or just use a tap wrench, and you can buy the hex material and you can make your own nuts. Let me show you the milling attachment real quick. There I have it attached to a fixture plate. I can take all this off the machine, bolt this plate down to this surface, and then put your workpiece in there, and you got your Z movement, and then your X and Y is your lathe controls. Closing, all I can say is this has been a very enjoyable 2 years. Before this, I would say my best years were playing ice hockey, traveling across the eastern United States. This craft here surpasses that at this time. There's no limit to the education you can go to, teaching yourself, you know, all the way to the point to where flatness is measured in arc seconds. I mean, come on, you know? But you don't need to learn all that. You know, you just put some metal in there and make something. Very satisfying to make something. You know, I get a great satisfaction just out of, you know, turning this and polishing it. It's just a round piece of steel with a couple center holes in it. I freaking love it, man. That finish is like a mirror. That one's actually pretty good. Yeah, there's great satisfaction. I can't imagine what it would be like to produce actual machine parts that, you know, can be used in industry. And I mean, like the A-bomb level, Steve Summers, and then you're gonna go up to, you know, the hell's his name, you know? He works in a top secret lab that makes akin to Q on 007, you know? Frank Hoos is a great resource for mini lathe stuff. He's got a website, minilathe.com. Unbelievable amounts of information. Take it as far as you want, you know? So enjoy your new machine. Don't limit yourself. I started off just mimicking what other people were doing. If you have a chance to buy someone's old toolbox, get it. It's worth $500 if it's got anything in it. Hopefully you don't have to pay that much. But yeah, look for, you know, some retired guy's toolbox. You know, that's I got tools that I didn't even know what they were. And then I got catalogs, and I see people using the tools, and you look it up in the catalog, find out what it does. All right, that's all I can say, man. Jesus, this has changed my life. I'm having a ball. I wake up to urinate in the middle of the night and come out here and turn the lathe on. I have a problem.